Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Degrassi video for Cutter Historical YouTube channel. I've been trying to look at top tens and see if many of them are dated and all that, like a few years ago, and how public's perceptions have changed. I redid the top 10 season premieres and finales made in the 2025 version, and now I'm going to be doing the top 10 best and the top 10 worst Degrassi parents videos for this weekend. The weekend being July 19th. 2025. So I did the top 10 best parents and the worst parents years ago, like 3 years ago, and I think people's perceptions have changed, and it kind of did change. So what happened was I looked at the top 10 I did and looked at the good parents and if they were really good parents and all that. I found six good ones and I put them in a poll of the top six from the previous one and give them favorable marks because they were there last time. And then what I did was I did a Degrassi post on Reddit and then said, well, who was a good parent? And I found several good people and all that. There were um, six pretty six seven, sorry, seven good ones. So I decided to do a poll that the top four will get into my top 10. The three that did not make the cut were Ashley's mom, because she was telling Ashley about Ashley's dad's homosexuality and okay with a gay wedding and all that. Mama Coin, that is Fiona and Declan's mom, dealing with Fiona's alcoholism thanks to Bobby, and even Ellie's mom, post season 4. So anyway, that's what happened. So what I did was I looked at the results of the top 6 poll and I'm making a couple moves. So the top two from the 7 to 10 poll, if you will jump into the top 6. And then the two that did not get a vote in the top 6 poll will actually dip to number 7 and 8. But I put them up as high as I can. All right, so here we go. Number 10 on the list is Joey. A lot of people went back and forth saying Joey was a good parent, Joey was a bad parent. Joey could be a great area parent, and that's probably what it is. But to me, I think that Joey was a decent parent to Angie and Craig. He was a doting dad to Angie, of course, losing Julia to illness. And by season 1, he was trying to get back in the dating game, and maybe him and Caitlin again. Well, of next gen, of course. And then in season 2, he has to deal with Craig hanging around Angie and thinking that Craig is stalking her and all that, but soon learns the connection because Craig ended up being a step sibling to Angie. And we find out that Craig's mom, Julia, was the one who was actually dead after being married to Joey. And worst of all, Craig's dad, Albert, decides to take it upon himself to beat up Craig for seemingly no good reason. Maybe he's using Craig as an emotional punching bag. The fact of the matter is that Joey doesn't understand the Craig situation until Sean and Emma team up and tell Joey everything. Even Angie pipes up, and Joey realizes things. Joey allows Craig to live with him for a while until Albert tries to come him back, but that ends up in Albert's death, and Joey adopts Craig, obviously, because, Craig has nowhere to go. Craig's with Joey. Joey seems to be an understanding parent towards Craig's needs, but unfortunately for him, not always. But it's kind of a gray area with him. And then, he heads off to live in Calgary by season 5 or 6. I can't remember. And Craig has a drug problem and is sent to Calgary. That's how I feel. Number 9 is Margaret Matlin, aka Maya's mom. It pisses me off that we didn't see much about Maya's dad or heard about Maya's dad in the show. I mean, if you're not going to put him on the show, just make mention of him. But the fact of the matter for Maya's mom was that she was a decent person. At times, she just pissed me off and all that. Especially in season 13 when Maya gets cyber shamed by Zoe. She writes a song about Zoe and then basically gets suspended by Snake. And the fact is that, Margaret tries to do things to help Maya out, but then she learns that she can't get much help from the internet and all that. And so he makes his apology, and Maya's mom buys it. Maya doesn't buy it, but Maya's mom says you have to turn the other cheek. So she basically blames her daughter for stuff and makes Maya a little bit more peeved at authority figures, especially at Snake. I think she blasted Snake when she came back to school after the suspension and put her in the rubber room. Snake says it's not a punishment; it's just to help you out. Hmm, Snake, you're an idiot. But anyway, Margaret Matlin was decent. She was a good helping person towards Katie, Katie's knee injury and drug addiction. I mean, Katie was trying to get on the national soccer team but failed miserably. And did I mention that Mrs. Matlin actually was one of the few characters with a disability? She actually had, I would say, cerebral palsy. That's it. Yeah, cerebral palsy and all that. She had to be in a wheelchair. She had to use crutches. She had to use a lot of stuff and all that. So, yeah. But I think in a way she tried to help her daughter out with her problems, thinking that Maya is off unhinged and has to put up with Maya's overreactionary thing to Cam's death. Nevertheless. Okay, so let's switch over to number 8. Number 8 is Mia's mom. She was in the top 6, but she didn't get any votes in the poll results. So top 6. So that means I'm going to switch her down to number 8. I think that Mia's mom was a decent person. People have been saying on Facebook and Reddit how much Mia's mom was terrible and how Mia was probably a terrible person for forcing her mom to take care of Izzy while she goes to school. But the point is, Mia's mom actually agreed that she could take time off work and deal with Izzy and then let Mia be a teenager and all that. That's a decent way of saying it. And let's face facts. I mean, Mia's mom knew that Mia needed to sparkle on the Spirit Squad and all that, and her modeling career. Like she knew she had to be a good grandmother to Izzy and all that. So yeah, so Mia's mom was decent and all that, and I don't know what happened to Izzy. Like, did she go to Paris with Mia when she went in season 9, or was she taking care of her? Nevertheless, Mia's mom kind of rocked in a way. Number 7 is Terry's dad, who also missed the 1 to 6 poll, but I put him in there. So yeah, at number 7 is Terry's dad. Reason being is that, he was caring about his daughter and all that, despite the fact that he lost his wife, aka Terry's mom, in a car accident, which Terry referenced while she was trying to comfort Craig about the loss of his dad in the season 2 finale, which is pretty cool. The fact of the matter is that he encouraged Terry to be who she was and didn't like when Terry basically called herself a fat cow and tried to, you know, persuade Terry that she is a beautiful woman and all that. Terry's dad did blow up at Spinner and Paige when he finds out about Terry being in the coma thanks to Rick, saying that Rick was a perfect gentleman. Why didn't you tell me these things? However, Terry's dad the next day decided to tell Spinner and Paige that he was just acting out of anger and he should not have blasted them, saying that it wasn't your fault. You have the right to be mad because everyone's like pointing fingers at each other and all that. Terry's dad puts Terry in a private school. Maybe it's a school for people with different brain functions because we don't know how bad Terry had it with the rock and all that. But the fact of the matter is that, Terry's dad was perfect. But in a sense, Terry's dad was bad because, like, it was everyone's probably asking the question, why didn't Terry's dad press criminal charges or anything, some kind of investigation on Rick in the first place? Because that probably would have that could have given Rick no chance to come back to Degrassi. Maybe the police will just say put a restraining order on him. But of course that didn't happen, and Raj gets a lot of flack for everything. I mean, I don't know if Raj could have stopped Rick coming back to Degrassi. He could have certainly tried, but maybe he did try, and the school board said no. But the fact of the matter is that Raj did screw up because, he let Rick back in the school, and he didn't seem to help the students' cries and pleas for something. And then they basically took Emma's Orange Ribbon Campaign as mob justice. So, All right, number six, and second place in the 7 to 10 poll is Spike's mom in Degrassi Junior High. So we're going old school on this one, and a few people actually recommended this one when in the post. So what happens is that Spike's mom's a decent person, but then once was it the third episode of Degrassi Junior High when Spike learned she's pregnant? I mean, they went there that fast. Yikes! But nevertheless, she doesn't know how her mom will feel about her being pregnant after the one time thing with Shane. But Spike's mom is a decent person and helps Spike out with her pregnancy and all that, her complications and all that, especially with the fact that Shane did not want anything to do with the kid. Now, it was mostly Shane, but it was also Shane's parents because Shane's parents didn't want Shane involved with the child, saying that, the child would be put up for adoption. We're going to send Shane away to a private school and you'll never have to deal with the child and we'll never have to deal with it. And then Shane basically says, you're only doing this for yourself. You're only doing this because of the fact that you're embarrassed to go out in public and all that. It says, let me take care of the baby. Shane does all he can, but old habits are hard pressed. He buys concert tickets instead of giving Spike money for Emma, and then he falls off a bridge, high on acid, and then he has bad brain functions, and Shane's parents do kick him out. But yeah, Spike's mom was decent, and we find out that Spike's dad is not in their lives. It's like what the hell, and all that. But Spike's mom was pretty cool, raising Spike to be the woman she was. Although sometimes Spike does have some bad opinions and all that, and that's passed down to Emma, if you will. Number five is Allie and Sav's parents. Now, you can make the argument that they are part of the worst parents, but the fact of the matter is that there is another parent who actually was technically a bad parent, but then moved on to be a good parent later in the series. And people said that Allie and Sav's parents were better. So Allie and Sav's parents in seasons 8, 9, 10 are basically traditionalists. They don't want Anya dealing with Sav, even though Anya says, I'll read the Quran and I'll do whatever you want. And Sav's parents are like, no, we don't want you around him. And relationship. And of course, Anya falls flat because Sav kind of screws everything over. But then, they pressure Ali to do stuff around the house and all that, while leaving Sav to be kind of lazy, quote unquote. And all that. Sav does take his dad's truck to a concert and all that and blast his dad for everything. And then his dad just basically says, deep down inside, you're a good person. You always will be. Deep down. They just basically didn't care much about it. And Ali having all the problems from season 10, Vegas night, going to new school, and then basically being framed for smoking. And Ali's mom just doesn't give a crap of what Ali says, saying that you have no voice. And then Ali runs away for a while, and Ali's parents break down, saying, when you have teenagers, you'll understand. But thankfully, Ali comes home. Sav convinces her to come home, and then they decided to get together for a photo, that family photo before going to the counseling, and they changed ways. And yeah, Ali and Sav's parents actually are better and all that. More understanding. They weren't perfect, but they were way more understanding. And that helped out a little bit. All right, so number 4 on the list is Spike. Spike, Christine Nelson, the person I referenced in number 6. So Spike is a pretty good mom and all that. So, she had to sacrifice herself. She, of course, got kicked out of school by Mr. Lawrence because the parents raised this think that it's going to glorify pregnancy and all that if Spike's allowed at the school, even though Radich disagrees with Lawrence's mistakes. Lawrence basically is unseen and all that. Caitlin writes the op-ed. Lawrence basically blasts her for stuff, even though that Caitlin didn't ask for Spike's permission. But then Caitlin basically says that I'm going to be a journalistic integrity, and basically Lawrence has talked me, and I'm not going to let people like him screw me over. Well, that's a start. Nevertheless, Spike, has to do well in school, and the worst part for Spike is that Emma kept getting sick and all that, and she laments about having to lose school time because of Emma's illness. And Miss Avery says you should count your blessings that you could have children. Basically, Miss Avery can't have kids. But basically, Spike and Miss Avery do make up. But Spike was a idealistic parent. She was a decent parent and all that. She basically lambasted Emma for the catfishing thing, and Emma says she's made a mistake and all that. And Spike says, "You can come to me for anything. I'm willing to help." Something that Emma royally did throughout the show. But Spike was a decent mother and all that. Having baby Jack, who just basically disappeared by season 6 and 7. But the fact is that, she knew she had a headstrong daughter. I mean, Spike was headstrong too. And, with the fact that there wasn't really a father figure for Emma to be around and who would rear Emma's outspokenness, she marries Snake, even though Emma's not happy at first because that's her teacher. And I don't blame her one bit. But the fact of the matter for Emma is that, you know, Emma was a decent person. And Snake dealt with Emma's outspokenness and all that. So well, one bad point about Spike is not telling Emma about Shane and all that. Like when Emma wants to know about her dad in season 3 premiere, and Spike is of little help. Snake has to take over and basically tell Emma about why Spike was hesitant to tell Emma about her dad and all that. And Emma understood. Spike does apologize. Emma let's cool off and all that. But yeah, Spike's a perfect person. There was a tie for number 2, but based on my personal feelings, I'm going to make this person number 3 is Audra. Now, Audra is, I think, the main example for Degrassi for a bad parent turning into a good parent. Mr. Hollingsworth was not a good parent. But the fact of the matter is that Audra seemed to be a little bit overprotective throughout seasons 10, 11, 12. Basically, she's got on a lot of people's bad side, like the fans, because of the fact that Audra was kind of protecting Drew. I mean, Drew was a quarterback when he was at the prep school and then went to Degrassi. He wanted to be quarterback. Riley was quarterback. And then, Drew was being hazed and all that. Audra forced Snake to do something about it or else she should cancel the football team. And Riley was suspended. And everyone thought that Drew was, you know, picky and he wanted to out Riley and basically forced Riley to choose quarterback or being got out there as being gay. But no, he didn't. He just wanted the quarterback spot. Drew was basically the guy who wanted it. And the worst of all, Audra seemed to like protect him and all that from everybody. She did want to change Adam back to Gracie because, it was normal. But I think Audra was under pressure from her parents to have Adam changed to Gracie, but then learns Adam starts to cut himself. So Audra decides she can't be that type of person and allows Adam to blossom as a boy and is willing to help out and all that. So she turned around on that. But it seemed like Drew could do no wrong. And basically Audra would blame other people. Like when Drew was in the boiler room with Ali and Bianca, what does she do? She forces the girls to take a sensitivity training course and all that. And Drew seems to be untouchable and all that. She basically put her foot down and basically forced Snake to do these things unless Snake wants to be kicked out as principal. So Snake overreacts with Audra, I feel. Like, Snake is the person he feared he would be when he became principal. He feared he was going to be like Raj, a good guy at first, but then over time he starts to get more jaded. And unfortunately for Snake, that's what happens. Audra seemed to protect Drew in the face of Bianca, even though that Bianca wanted to end things and shoot Vince, who shot Drew and all that. Basically, Audra talks smack about Bianca. Drew decides to, I guess for the first time we see it, finally snap at his mom saying, she needs help and all that. And Audra relents and says, fine, I'll help her. But yeah, she seemed to always protect Drew at the worst of times. But she did fix things up. She was more caring towards Drew Heck, Audra forced Drew to do something bad in season 14. In the season 14 finale, which I think is the finale, not Summer Girls. I can't stand that. But in the main finale, she basically tells Drew to fix prom because Dallas misbooks the prom boat. Even though Drew was not supposed to go to prom because of his promposal going wrong and Pill thinking it was a stupid act of, um, I don't know, I can't remember, passion or something like that. So any they no affection policy. So Drew puts on the show at the dot thanks to getting stuff from the school, and Audra's happy with it. Pill's not and forces Drew to not cross the stage, saying that she needs to make an example out of him. But Audra was there too, and Audra realized that Drew was not lying. So even though it was probably set that in that stone that Snake was going to come back to be principal of Degrassi after the Degrassi Newt thing and being cleared of everything, that Audra must have used some kind of persuasion to tell her higher ups in the PTA and into the school board about Pill's stuff, and that was basically the last straw, and Pill was gonzo. So speaking of Snake, that's who number two is, Snake. So Snake was a good parent, like and all that. He was a decent godparent to Connor and all that. Because Connor went to live with Snake at Degrassi and all that. And he was a pretty good person towards Connor. Sure, he had a few slip ups, but he understood Connor's autism and he also understood Connor's incessant need for stuff, especially dealing with the online community girl and all that. So yeah, like and he calmed Connor down when he was having a fit after being caught stealing under or from the change room and all that, and sent Connor to a special school to help him deal with his emotions, and it worked out. But of course, him being he had to be pressing the parenthood with him marrying Spike, and having Emma as a stepdaughter, a headstrong stepdaughter at that. And how Emma seems to be a little awkward and all that and doesn't like things. Snake really had to deal with some embarrassing situations with Emma, especially season 6 when Emma wants to be sexually active, I guess to keep Sean or for some reason. And then she makes a presentation and makes him look at it, and it's like creepy, cringy. And yes, of course, Emma, when she was in her birthday suit to do Purple Dragon season 7, she finally decides to go after Purple Dragon and takes off the dress and has nothing on underneath. Well, maybe a teapot or tea back under a thing. And Snake just had to see it and tells Emma, please, Emma, no more stupidity. And then the next episode, he gets eliminated because Darcy makes false accusations at him. But my point is that he had to deal with Emma and her stuff, including the genetically modified foods thing with her and Radish at odds with each other. He basically tells Emma that as a administrator, I can't do too much about. As a teacher, I can't do too much about it, but as a parent, I'm okay with what you decide to do. And Snake nods about Emma's plan, all that. It's complicated. And of course, Snake attacks Radish for his foresight, his lack of foresight. That the fact of the matter is that it was kind of because of the whole school situation, and also because of how Emma almost died in Rick's gun by Rick's gun, I should say. And he was doing his parental thing. But what people forget, and I don't blame you guys for realizing this, is that in Degrassi High, in the 2 seasons, we actually see Snake kind of get close to Spike and toddler Emma. So there was something there, which was kind of weird. And number one, who won the poll, and of course the voting numbers will be made at the end of the video, is Bullfrog, aka Eli's dad. I kind of didn't think that would be number one. It wasn't number one last time. It was number two 3 years ago. Now it's number one. But I'm like, man, whatever. So I don't know much about Bullfrog stuff because this was the time I didn't really watch Degrassi as much. But yeah, he dealt with his son's bipolar problems, his depression, his anxiety because he lost his girlfriend and his hearse and all that. And then you got some strange people and all that. But what Bullfrog did was great. Bullfrog used his parental vision to help Eli because Eli was the one who found Cam's mutilated body in season 12. What happened to Cam? Did he hang himself? Did he slash himself? Did he drink garden chemicals? Which is plausible because he was in a greenhouse. But, it could be a combination. I at first thought, okay, he drank garden chemicals and that's why he looked so gory to Eli. But he could have also slashed himself after ingesting the garden chemicals. So that's what ends up happening. And because I know about garden centers and toxicity of stuff, because I've worked with soils for 3 years in the summertime at Canadian Tire, I should know about this. And everyone's like, good point. But nevertheless, remember, Eli was the one who found Cam's body, and then Bullfrog helped out with Eli's, you know, PTSD. And also Snake, because, number one and number two did connect and helped them out. Because remember, Snake told Eli, we're not so different, you and I, because Snake was the one who found Claude's body in the bathroom in Showtime in Degrassi High when Claude decides to off himself. So he knows how it feels. And, Eli knows it's okay to have these problems. Of course, everyone else has problems to do with Cam, especially Maya. But, Bullfrog was perfect. A perfect thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. Oh, dude.